topic here is environmental modification. This means, do these materials have the ability to modify the general environment of the planet and the atmosphere? And the answer is yes, and we could take our day and go over that, but my conclusion is yes, they do and they can. Military applications. There's crossover between these. We certainly saw the interest in the military, but what are the... Oh, we didn't even talk about this yet, but I've got to get this in. I've got to get it in, I guess. We talked about the hypothesis or supposition that if you introduce a metallic salt into the atmosphere at a fine enough level, that it could explain the physical dimensions of what we're seeing, right? We talked about that. Okay, now let's go a little bit deeper on that one. That particular class of metallic salts that I have identified to the best of my ability, again, I don't have all the means and measures, but I have done work to try and identify. If I'm saying they're metallic salts, is there any way I can figure out what kind of metallic salts are? Why did I say they were metallic salts? Well, because of the water absorption. Okay. By the way, half the periodic table is metals, so metals in themselves are not unusual. I'm not talking about metals in a pure form. I'm talking about salts. My goodness, your table salt is a metallic salt, okay? Sodium chloride, right? Metallic salts come in many, many forms, very, very common sometimes, but the properties of water absorption is one of them. Now, here's the property of these salts that I have found to be a basis of a further supposition that I have made. There is a particular class of metallic salts that if you subject them to energy, they ionize. Now, what does that mean? An ion is a charged particle, okay? And hey, if I ever do anything that's not right to understand, you got to let me know, because the whole purpose of this is for us to understand. So if you think, I will not try to lead you, and I try to talk in terms I can understand. But an ion is a charged particle, okay? Got juice to it, little bitty guy. It's got some lymph and juice to it, all right? If I subject a particular class of metallic salts to energy, they become electrically charged. Gets really interesting here. Okay, what kind of energy do I need? The particular class of metallic salts that I am speaking of here, sunlight alone is sufficient to ionize them. This is actually fascinating to me. When I started out in this, I had no idea that such a thing could happen. Okay? You mean to tell me you can take the energy of just what's beaming down on us, and you can subject a particular class of material to that energy, and that it will become electrically charged? It's like, wow. But this is true. This is true. This can happen. Now, some people made a mockery of this when I presented this statement, okay? But it's okay with me, because in the end, you have to simply drive to the truth the best you can wherever it was. And the mockery of this would be, oh, Carnicom, he's saying if you set some table salt out on the deck that it's going to make something like that. Okay? Well, not exactly, okay, but in principle, this person was making a joke out of something that's actually quite real, if you look at it. And one of the ways this can come about is like the ocean has magnesium salts, okay? And they sort of vaporize off the ocean. That is one of those classes that can happen. Now, the particular element that has been of the greatest interest to me here is one called barium. And I will say that early in the research, this is a case where you're given a lead. I was actually given a piece of information that said barium is involved in this, okay? Early in the game. That information, literally, it just sat for 2 years. Sometimes I can't do anything with it. I couldn't do anything with that piece of information. I didn't know anything particularly about barium. I had no understanding of it. It's like several years later, at least 2 or 3, I'm doing some work, and I'm starting to do some testing, and I'm starting to see the indication physically of something that's starting to catch my interest, that's satisfying properties of barium metallic salt. And eventually that became positive as best I can. You can go through the work, but I